Wow. While I was musing a few seconds ago in between excerpts, God gave me an insight. He said, do you know, Peter, consider the lilies. And I'm looking at my book, and the word is consider the lilies. Do you know that God made this earth? Right here. He made this whole earth. And do you know that He knows every grain of sand on this earth? Do you know that you and I see white caps come in on the waves? He knows every wave in the ocean. He knows every fish in the sea. He knows every lily that grows in a pond. And He said these lilies are arrayed greater than Solomon. Why did He say that? Because He's the one that arrayed them. Who arrayed Solomon? God allowed Solomon, in his wisdom, to array himself. Had he said, God, you array me the way you want me to be, he would have been arrayed better than the lilies, more than likely. But instead, God stepped back and said, okay, go ahead, big boy. And He arrayed Himself in purples and fine linens and all of the things above, and the stables and the horses and the chariots. And I have over 300 chariots and 300 horses and 300 horsemen that He fed every day. Do you know that every time that Solomon ate a meal, that over 10,000 people ate that meal that day? That's 30,000 people a day Solomon's feeding. Every day. And he did it day after day, year after year, for a long time. And God allowed him to do that. But God said, all of His wisdom, all of His ability and everything is not but a speck compared to what I do. I feed the whole world every day. I take care of the whole world every day. I give heat when heat's needed. I give cool when cool is needed. I make the seasons work so that the earth can work properly. I'm the one that put the stars in place up there. I'm the one that hung the moon and the sun on nothing. And it stays where I told it to and does what it's supposed to do. And I'm the one that did all of that. Do you not think that I can care for you? If I take care of every single lily, do you think I cannot take care of you? You put your faith in me like the lily does. What does the lily do? The Bible said it doesn't toil. And the Bible said it doesn't spin. That means it does nothing but depend on its maker to make it look like it looks. What a beautiful lesson Jesus has taught us in the past. Of the quietness of the lilies. The rest and quietness of the lilies. Consider the lilies of the field, He says, how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin. He is trying to teach us how free we can be. Free from all earthly cares and anxieties. I suspect I'm talking to many people like myself. That if I'm not careful, I will look around and say, ooh-wee, this could be disastrous. God said, you let me take care of it. And you look around and you figure out how many souls you can save during this period of time. How many people you can win to me and what you can do. The lily does not struggle. It has no anxieties about its future. But it grows, and it grows to be beautiful. Even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of them. God paints the flower with greater beauty than the robes of kings. If you would be beautiful, you must rest in the Lord. Just a little struggling, and you will mar the whole thing. Christ wants to reveal himself through you and through me. He will shine the beauty of his own glorious person into your soul if you will but be quiet. Have no anxieties about things that pertain to this life. And Jesus will clothe you with the beauties of heaven and the bounties of heaven. Character, as the years pass on, it is revealed on the face. The Messiah's face shows the M-I-S-C-R-L-Y, misclary condition of his heart. Jesus will stamp his own image, upon the soul if the soul is kept in quietness. And this image will stand out in beauty on the face of the outward life. By this lesson of the lilies, Jesus did not mean to teach that he should not pray. He once said, men ought always to pray. We must pray much. If we do not pray, Satan will have us toiling and spinning. Keeping close to Jesus with a strong faith and a firm prayer life, and trust in him only, the way to rest, and we can do this without much prayer. Cease thy toiling and care. Learn a lesson from the lilies. Rest in the Lord, and he will make you an object of Christian beauty that will bless the world. Even after you are long gone, that restful, patient life will cast its rays of light and beauty back and chase away the shadows from the life of others. Listen, I'm standing behind a man, roughly 100 years ago, we'll say, in the 1800s. I'm studying him. I'm reading his life. He wrote his life down in a book and left it. And God saw fit for me to end up with it, with this one. The day has gone. The twilight fades. There's stillness everywhere. I seek some place of solitude and humbly bow in prayer. I tell the story of the day, the joy of grief and care. I keep not back one secret thing, but tell it all in prayer. O heart of mine, be light and free, not lightest burden bear. In everything let thy request be told to God in prayer. Yes, all I tell it, all to Christ, in evening twilight dim. Somehow my heart much lighter grows, since all is told to him. I lay my life at his dear feet. O Jesus, I am thine. I'll walk the way of life with thee. Thy will, O Christ, is mine. And now I lay me down to sleep, while gathering shadows fall, and sweet indeed my rest shall be, since Jesus knows it all. We can go to bed in the most sorrowful time and rest in Jesus. sleep like a log. Go to bed and get a few hours. God will wake you up and say it's prayer time. Say, Lord, it's 2:30. Well, he said, you can pray until 3. I want you to get on the YouTube at 3 and start out again. A new day for me. A holy life. Sorrowful yet always rejoicing. This world has right now in it some sorrowful life. Yet we can always rejoice. This world is sometimes called the vale of tears. While we're in this flesh and in this veil of flesh, it can be a teary life. Jesus said, in the world you shall have tribulation. But he also said, in me you shall have peace. So in the middle of tribulation, there is peace. The way to heaven is through tribulation. You say, did Jesus have tribulation? What you think? Hanging on the cross was not tribulation? And he was the forerunner of all salvation? Those who John saw standing before the throne, and the Lamb arrayed in white robes, and with palms in their hands, were one day where they were, now I. And thank God we're coming up through the great tribulation. Shall someday be where they are, while men in this world will meet with sorrow. He can, by the grace of God, always rejoice. A loom through unto the muddy waters will clarify it. The grace of God thrown unto a cup of sorrow will turn it into joy. Sorrows are needful. It is only a barren waste where there is no rainfall. We have sung, no days are dark to me. This can indeed be true. But it is not to be taken in the sense that there will be no clouds nor rain fall. Show me a man who never had a cloud to float across his sky, and I will show you a man who has not faith enough to see clearly in the sunlight. It is those whose faith pierces through the clouds and keeps the smiling sunlight, the face of Christ, in view, that have the thrust, the sweetest joy and trust. Their rejoicing is in the Lord. By bravery and force of will, some may shout themselves against sorrow and soon become insensible to it, to trouble. Allow God to be the sensible one, and you just follow on. But the heart is stilled against the sorrow, is in all probability so closed that it cannot experience joy. Those who know the deepest sorrow may oftentimes know the fullest joy. And that in the midst of their sorrow, do not harden your heart against sorrow, but look to Jesus for that balm which heals, that grace which sustains, that comfort with gladness. Some have thought that true joy consists in never having a sorrow, that those who have sorrow have not found the way of peace. In this they err. Those who never have had a sorrow rejoice because they have no sorrow. But now who have sorrow have learned to rejoice in the Lord. This is trust, joy. Sorrowful, said one who was crucified with Christ, yet always rejoicing. He never once denied having sorrow. Nay, he said, I have great heaviness and continual sorrow in my heart. But he also said, I glory. He gloried in the Father. Jesus gloried in the Father, but there was no sorrowful time on earth anymore than the time he was on the cross. It was the deep sorrow that made him most like Jesus. He had feeling. We sorrow, he said, but not as those who have no hope. The world knows a sorrow that the Christian does not know. Christians should be careful lest in hardening themselves against feelings that they do not render themselves incapable of feeling compassion, sympathy, or pity. Let the tears flow. If you keep them back, the fountain will dry up. May the Lord pity those who have no tears. Jesus wept. Imagine that's the shortest verse in the Bible. We learned that when we were in Sunday school, when we were young people. The shortest verse in the Bible was Jesus wept. The Apostle Paul said, out of much affliction and anguish of heart, I wrote unto you with many tears. Oh, that unfeeling heart that cannot suffer, that dry heart that has no fountain of tears. It weeps not over the sorrow of others, and consequently cannot rejoice when others are joyful. Only those who weep can truly rejoice. You rejoice because you and your family are in good health, because your friends are smiling upon you, because circumstances surrounding you are favorable, because you have an abundance of good things to eat and of clothing to wear. But your rejoicing is only in earthly things. We are to be careful for those things, but they are only the sea foam of joy. The water lies beneath. True joy is to rejoice not only in the Lord, but with the Lord. Rejoice in those things in which Jesus and the angels rejoice. When your goods are being wasted, you find your deepest joy because God is being glorified. If you cannot weep with angels, you cannot rejoice with them. See that aged pilgrim, he has been a hard and stony way. Loved ones have gone on one by one from his embrace. Riches have taken wings and flown away. Sorrows have been multiplied. Trials are many. Burdens are heavy. He is footsore. He is sad. He is worried. Angels are bending over his weeping. Can you weep with him and them? They comfort him. The sadness of his heart begins to die away. Hope begins to dawn. The dawning of the hope causes the angels to rejoice. This is truest joy. Rejoice when souls are saved. Rejoice when hearts are gladdened. Rejoice when God is praised. This is the true source of pursuit, joy. But it is only those who are capable of suffering deeply with a suffering of others that can truly rejoice when their suffering are turned away. The more we are like Jesus, the more we have of His Spirit. The tender will be our hearts, and the more deeply will our souls be moved by the suffering of others. When some dear friend has proved untrue, when some loved one has gone astray, when the death angel has left a chair vacant at your hearthstone, and deep sorrow lies upon your soul, then it is that you feel nearer to Jesus. And do you know, sometimes it takes that kind of sorrow for us to get nearer to Jesus. You feel ripe for heaven. Your world has suddenly gone out, and you have cast your cares, your eyes upward. Do not try to keep back tears. Let them flow. They are pearls in the angel's sight. It is the tears of the child that touches the heart of the parents. The cities hymn to give comfort to the little ones. It is the tears of the Christian that touches the great loving heart of God and moves Him to give that solace which only heaven gives. David said in the time of deepest sorrow, his son was seeking his life. It may be the Lord's will to look on my tears, and that of the Lord will requite me good. Hezekiah was doomed to die. The prophet told him to set his own house in order, for he should die and not live. The dying man turned his face to the wall and prayed, I beseech thee, O Lord, remember now how I have walked before thee in truth and with a perfect heart, and have done that which is good in thy sight. And he wept with a great weeping. Imagine, this touched the heart of God, and he said, I have heard thy prayer, I have seen thy tears, and behold, I will heal thee. In the heart of God's saints were a deeper fountain of tears. More sick people would be healed in these days. Around are the sick and suffering, but alas, how few tears. That's true today. Right now, we are living in a worldwide pandemic of a sickness that is removing the life, physical life, from thousands of people. And we've not shed a tear. We will when it hits close to home. When saints have so depended upon God, cultivated such a tenderness of heart, and become so deeply compassionate that they will water their couch with their tears all the night at the sight of sick persons, they will get answers to their prayers. To such God will say, behold, I will heal him. If tears will not reach God, the case is hopeless. Esau sought for a place of repentance and sought it with tears, but God could not find it. The maintaining of tears here implies that the addition of tears to earnest heart-seeking has influence with God. Jeremiah, in Jeremiah's day, in his time, in Lamentations, for fallen Israel, said, oh, that my head were water, and my eyes a fountain of tears, that I might weep day and night for the slain of the daughters of my people. He knew that if anything would avail with God, it would be the tears. Therefore, he wished that his eyes were a fountain of tears, so that God might be moved to save Israel. God said he bottles our tears up, by the way. When we get to heaven, there will be a bottle by us, and it will have our tears, our real tears that we've shed for others and for things that God believes that tears should be shed for. They will be in there. They that sow in tears shall reap in joy. What kind of tears is he talking about? Tears over a lost soul? Tears over somebody you know that you need to cry for? I didn't lose my wife. My wife moved on to heaven before me a couple of years ago. We were married 57 years. As far as I'm concerned, I will die still married to her. I will die faithful to her. I would not tarnish what we had and have still. The Bible said there is no marriage or giving in marriage in heaven. But if we were married down here and we became one, what can cause us to not still be one? So I'm very careful in this life that my love that I had for that woman, now I add it to the love that I had for God. The time I spent nights wrapped up with my wife in love and just hugging each other and just saying, I love you, I love you. That now can be to God. The lamentations that I have now need to not be that my wife has gone to heaven before me, but need to be for those who I hear, still here on the world, in the earth, but aren't making it like they should be. That my head were waters, he said, and my eyes were a fountain of tears, that I might weep day and night for the slain of the daughters of my people. We know that if anything would avail with God, it would be tears. Therefore, he wished that his eyes were a fountain of tears, so that God might be moved to save Israel. Well, our time is about come and gone. And he said, I know trouble and I know sorrow. I see today, nor will I borrow gloomy visions for the morrow. I'm not going to seek gloomy visions for the morrow. God is on the scene. Yes, we're in a pandemic, but God is on the scene. And it's not the gloom that we need to have because of what's happening, because God is the one that's causing it to happen. He is the one that knows what's going on, and he's the one can take care of it. Well, we will see you next time. Right, Brother Peter saying bye-bye.